Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing, nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips a balance in favor of fair use. And again, unfortunately, I was very easily able to find more stories about how young women are drugged and ard in Scientology. This is from the Daily Mail, dated June 2nd, 2024. Oh, that's just recently. Unfortunately, I have to add some names to my list. Exclusive. Did you enjoy it? Former Scientologist tells how she was shamed, punished, and kicked out of the church after she was drugged and ard at 18 years old. Katrina Reyes, 30, signed Scientology's Sea Org billion-year contract when she was 11 years old, after emigrating from Russia with her mother. No, that was trafficking. Trafficking. During a trip to Russia to get her citizenship passport in 2006, Katrina says she was ard after drinking a beer spiked with date rape drug Rohypnol. She told Daily Mail TV that after she awoke, my first thought was, I'm going to get into trouble with the church because I broken one of the core rules. The Church of Scientology does not allow members to have sexual relations until they are legally married. Isn't that interesting? That right away they just paint that is like normal relations? Or maybe they're just trying to explain. Katrina was subjected to a series of security checks, interrogations on an e-meter, conducted by men. Of course. Because in a situation like that, it sure wouldn't be a woman. Or maybe it would, I don't know. They told me they didn't believe me. Of course they didn't believe her. That's black PR for Scientology. They told me they didn't believe me. They told me I was making it up just so I could leave the Sea Org. Always the same story, isn't it? Just like narcissistic abuse. By Laura Collins and Chris White in Austin, Texas, for dailymail.com, published 15 February 2018. Seems like this was just updated, though. A former member of the Church of Scientology's elite Sea Org, not an elite about it, has told how the church shamed, punished, and ultimately kicked her out after she was drugged and ard as an 18-year-old. No, what that was a liability for them. Kind of sounds like the whole Masterson thing, doesn't it? But what do I know? Most painful of all in her darkest hour, Siberian-born Katrina Reyes, who signed the Sea Org's infamous billion-year contract at 11 years old, was betrayed by the one person she thought she could turn to, her mother. See? That's why some of these mothers just need to absolutely drop dead behind those blue buildings. Just drop dead and get your karma. The Sea Org's rules concerning sexual contact effectively turned Katrina's R into a crime against Scientology and converted her from victim to perpetrator. Darvo. Deny attack, reverse victim offender. I added that. Speaking exclusively, she's very pretty, young lady. Speaking exclusively to Daily Mail TV, Katrina recalled the moment her mother told her she could be kicked out. My first thought was, well, if they kick me out, aren't you coming with me? And she said, no, I have too much here. Isn't that wonderful? Wonderful. Katrina Reyes, in Where's Daddy, 30, tells Daily Mail TV how she was kicked out of the Church of Scientology after she reported she had been AR'd. They looked at that as black, I think it's called black PR. Katrina signed her billion-year contract when she joined the Sea Org when she was just 11 years old, after she and her mother moved to Florida from Siberia. Of course, they always take them from somewhere else. Today, 30-year-old Katrina is happily married to software engineer Jose. She lives in Austin, Texas with him, their 2 dogs, and son Nolan, who will turn 2 in May. Life is good, life is normal, she says. It is more than 10 years since Katrina's mother sat with her traumatized daughter and told her she would not go with her if she was forced to quit the only life she'd ever known. But Katrina's devastation remains sharp to this day. Also, by the way, the perpetrator's probably still in there, and God knows how many more victims. I wonder if the LAPD would even just want to know. Or maybe they don't. I'm not really sure if they do really investigate crimes. I don't know at this point. And a lot of their officers have been caught being guilty of the R word themselves. It has taken her years and hundreds of hours of therapy to process what happened to her when, as an 11-year-old girl, living with her mother in Russia, she was co-opted into the Sea Org on the promise of a better life in America. Great way to paint it. Isn't that a great way to paint it? Katrina's grandmother had been introduced to Scientology when she visited Florida for work. The older woman was immediately hooked, signing up as a member of the Sea Org, the church's quasi-military administrative body, after barely 2 weeks in the country. See how they lure people in? That's trafficking. According to Katrina, her grandmother thought life at Scientology's flag headquarters. I wonder if she was drugged and AR'd in the Fort Harrison Hotel. There's got to be some evil spirits haunting that place. In Clearwater, might help her own daughter straighten her life out. She's talking about the grandmother. She recalled, my grandmother painted a picture of a good life, a purpose, a job, helping people. You never have to worry about a roof over your head or me having an education. I guess that was very appealing. American dream for my mother. American prison. But I suppose she didn't know. She and her mother were recruited into the estate's project force. A Sea Org boot camp of sorts. I love how they word all this stuff. It's basically like a similar to like some type of a mind control camp. Designed as a crash course to being qualified to be given a post or job. You know, the ones that they make, what, $30 a week back in those days? Katrina claims her mother Yelena, pictured with her husband. They all look so underweight. Oh my God. She chose to stay in the church after she was kicked out, and the two have been estranged since 2014. Isn't that called, oh, I can't think of it right now. Yelena Wright and Katrina left when she was only 17 years old and was a young mother who didn't have her priorities straight. Men were a number one priority, and going out partying, she says. I don't know, what does that ring true to? Kind of seems a little narcissistic. Or maybe just silly youth, I don't know. She said, we signed our billion-year contracts. I remember to the day. I read a billion years and I thought that was maybe just a way of saying I completely and utterly dedicate my life. At the same time, I remember thinking, this is what my mother is doing, so I have no choice. So I have no choice. So I have no choice. Kids can't consent. Wherever she goes, I just have to follow her. And there was little about her life in Eastern Europe that Katerina thought she would miss. Katerina, real name Yekaterina Tihonova, spent most of her childhood in Barnaul, Siberia. It was, she said, like a third world country. Maybe that's why Putin can't stand the Scientologists. Because that's like in that area, that's in that neck of the woods over there. We lived in a wooden house, no heating, no plumbing, no electricity. I'd have to haul the water from buckets. It was a pretty miserable existence. Her grandmother coached her to tell officials that she had every intention of returning to Russia, so her grandmother coached her to lie, so that she and her mother would be granted visas. Scientology is good at telling them what to say. Like a big Ponzi scheme. She said, I remember arriving at Tampa airports and everything was nice and clean and different. I remember the big automatic glass doors. That was the first time I'd ever seen them. I was like, wow, everything is so civilized here. The excitement was short-lived. She and her mother were taken to live in Seor housing, the Hacienda Gardens, the Hacienda Gardens, the Hacienda Gardens. That's also a hotel. Rows of dilapidated and overcrowded buildings. They shared a one-bedroom apartment with a dozen other women. Men and women are housed separately. Well, that's finally they got something right. She said the living room had 3 bunk beds in it. Then there was 1 dining room and 3 more bunk beds in the bedroom. The apartment was so old, it was filthy, disgusting. There were cockroaches, absolutely huge things. Mildew was everywhere because of the humidity. Tiles coming off the wall. How some of these buildings have not been condemned by the health authority. What do you call those? The Department of Health. I forget what the ones that inspect the buildings. How they're not deemed unlivable. It's just beyond me. Not to mention all the fire codes. And it's probably wired with old electricity. Just a fire waiting to happen. She shared a bunk with her mother as the two were recruited into the so-called Estates Project Force, EPF, a Sea Org boot camp of sorts. That's basically thought control. Designed as a crash course to being qualified to be given a poster job. She and her mother were taken in to live in Sea Org housing, the Hacienda Gardens, rows of dilapidated and overcrowded buildings. The Hacienda Gardens, where Katrina lived and worked, and is heavily fortified with a motion-censored fence, security, and a manned gate. Yeah, because they're prisoners. Nobody knows a fucking thing, though, do they? Katrina said the only thing I was excited about was that my mother was going to be away from her old life, things she used to do, I thought. She's finally going to concentrate on me instead of men partying and abandoning me. Okay, then she's got narc wired up right there. She's really seeming like a narcissist. Doesn't care about her child, just wants to party and be with men. Abandons her daughter. Narcissist. I thought it was an opportunity for us to have a clean start. And that's the parentification of the child right there. It was not to be. Days consisted of early starts, often heavy manual labor, which is happening right now, and hours of study. Katrina questioned everything, unable to go along with the theories espoused. Meanwhile, her mother absorbed it all and passed out of the EPF in 3 months. She was given a job, and Katrina was informed that her mother would be moving into different housing while she stayed on behind. You see why this is like a real draw for a narcissistic person? Oh, you can just drop your kid off. You don't have to take care of them anymore. You don't have to worry about them. They're not in your hair. I mean, like, we're seeing a lot of that. She said that it was very upsetting for me when I found out she can't live with me. We joined September 26, 1999. By New Year, she was already done. I never lived with her again. After a year, Katrina was assigned the post of tech page, which meant she organized the roster of Scientologists. She organized the roster of Scientologists who came to Clearwater, She organized the roster of Scientologists who came to Clearwater to be audited. You guys know what I'm hitting at here. Sessions could cost up to $1,000 an hour, which members were grilled and their answers read on L. Ron Hubbard's e-meter, a primitive polygraph test. It was a huge money-making enterprise, Katrina recalled. The priority was to get as many members in and through the process as possible, then sign them up for more courses, more auditing, more spending. Katrina said the first briefing of the day, the leader David Miscavige's questions were always who blew, who ran away, lawsuits, media, and then how much money Flag made. And then there's a lettering here with her name on it. Oh, her suppressive declare. We should create our own suppressive letters. Katrina was declared a suppressive person by the church in 2015. Yeah, all because she got drugged in ARD. Isn't that wonderful? A great church. Suck all the money from you, sexually abuse you, neglect you, physically abuse you as a child. The two worked long hours at Sea Org members, and Katrina was only allowed to see her mother for 40 minutes a day. Katrina enjoyed the contact with the world outside the Sea Org's rigid constraints, but it made her yearn for freedom of her own. She admitted, I see these people with their nice cars, nice houses, cell phones, dressed nicely, good children. It made me envious. I just wanted freedom, to get in the car and go anywhere I want. That's something for all of us to remember. We were herded in buses every day. We were herded in buses every day. We were herded, LAPD, we were herded in buses every day. At the hacienda, we had a perimeter fence, and when I once touched it, 3 security guards on bikes immediately surrounded me asking, who the F touched the fence? Then I realized it was motion activated. And don't for a minute think these wealthy celebrities don't know what's going on. And it's not just the celebrities, it's just the ones that have more money. They know what's going on. Who do you think they're going to get to be their nanny? Or to be their housekeeper? See Jenna Miscavige's book. Days were long, starting at 6 a.m. and sometimes not finishing until 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Failure to hit quotas for sales. What a religion, huh? Led to physical and mental punishment. Sleep deprivation, being forced to eat rice and beans for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The only glimmer of light in her day came at 7 p.m. When Katrina ate her dinner and had a chance to spend 40 minutes with her mother. Celebrities would often spend time in town, see? I mean, who else is going to get their clothes cleaned, right? Staying at one of the church-owned hotels, another church-owned hotel, such as the Osceola Inn or the Sandcastle, another hotel, where Katrina's mother worked. Well, I want to see what kind of work does her mom do. Katrina recalled you weren't allowed to go near Tom Cruise. You weren't allowed to speak or look at him. You see that? He's exactly like Miscavige. Disgusting. But we knew he was coming to Flag, as we'd have to white glove everything. It was a huge operation. So, like I said, you guys, they know what's going on. We had to clean all the waiting areas, auditing rooms. Then it would be inspected by someone who puts on a white cotton glove and touches every surface. Cruise would stay in the penthouse. At the Osceola Inn, she said he moved everywhere with a huge entourage, and his presence was always heralded by the arrival of 2 large black Cadillac SUVs. You see the pretentiousness? It's just disgusting. John Travolta was a bit more relaxed, she said. He was lovely. I would pass by him in the hallways. and restaurants, and he would look at you in the eye and say, "Hello, how are you?" Kirstie Alley used to stay at the sandcastle, and Katrina recalled her mother telling her that they had to refurbish all her rooms and provide her with orange Egyptian cotton sheets. That's disgusting. You see, Kirstie Alley was really benefiting off all the slave labor. She stayed in touch with her mother long enough for the older woman to come to her wedding in 2013. So they must have been able to do that because the disconnection didn't go through, because she didn't really speak out about the Scientology. Katrina now lives with her husband, Jose, in Austin, Texas. In 2016, when she was 5 months pregnant with her son, she went to Clearwater to try to visit her mother, but her attempt was ignored. Well, thank God the police can guard them, right? The police can keep them out. I mean, like, what better way to keep security than to have the Clearwater police, preventing families from reuniting? She said she was always dressed like she'd been to the gym, wearing sweats, hair tied back, unbrushed, but she was a hot mess. Oh, she's talking about Kirstie Alley. When you're a celebrity in Scientology, Katrina said, there's nothing that can't be done for you. See? Slave labor. But the gulf between the celebrity experience and that of the Sea Org members was huge. One thing that sticks in Katrina's throat to this day happened back in 2004 when Tom Cruise, oh, here we go, celebrated his birthday on Scientology's cruise ship, the Freedwinds. Sea Org members earn just $50 a week minus tax for hours of grueling work. Katrina said, I remember it was Friday when we picked up our pay, and you would get your little envelope with cash in it. Somebody cleansing some money over there? Somebody from the office that looks after VIPs was at the door going, we need a donation for Tom Cruise's birthday. It's mandatory, $35. That's disgusting. So out of the $50 you got paid minus tax, 2 or 3 weeks in a row they were taking $35 as a donation to pitch in for Tom Cruise's birthday present, which we found out was like a really expensive dirt bike. Yeah, but Tom Cruise has no clue, right? As much money as he has, I'm sure Miscavige and Scientology are sucking everything they can from him. But still, he's got a lot of money. It was a miserable existence that Katrina knew down deep was not for her, but she couldn't see a way out. In the end, her departure from the Sea Org came in the most devastating circumstances. In 2006, Katrina managed to persuade Sea Org officials to allow her to travel to Russia to get her citizenship passport, a legal requirement. See? Holding the passports. On the final night of her trip, staying with relatives, Siberia, she argued with a family member so violently that she felt she couldn't stay there that night. She called some old neighborhood friends and they went to a bar to drink and chill. To this day, Katrina does not know exactly what happened, but she believes a guy she did not know who bought her a beer had laced it with the so-called date R drug, Rofinol. She said, after I drank it, I kind of blacked out. I remember walking up some steps in a weird apartment building. I remember little bits and pieces. Boy, there's sure a lot of this going around. Maybe ED is for a reason. The next thing, I remember waking up in bed with 2 guys next to me and realizing I'd been R'd and I was still a virgin. In Scientology, you're not allowed to have any sexual relations until you're legally married. That's horrible. Now I look back on this and realize how bad this Scientology brainwashes you, to the point where my first thought wasn't, oh my God, I need to call the police. I need to go to the hospital. My first thought was, I'm going to get in trouble with the church because I've broken one of the core rules. Katrina was due to return to Florida that night, so she gathered her clothing from the floor, washed herself off, there's all the evidence, in the bathroom and left, flying back to the States as planned. She told no one. She kept her silence. Well, Scientology really primes them for that too, don't they? She kept her silence for a week, putting on a brave face and terrified that somebody would see through her. But then the fear that she might be pregnant or might have caught an STD trumped her fear of being punished for her misdemeanor. She said, I remember thinking they have to be sympathetic. She was wrong. Yeah, there's no sympathy there. Katrina had no choice but to tell a man. All the security guards were male. She said, I explained to them what happened, and he wanted it in great detail. Sick shit, man. They really get off on this. That's why some of these that you guys see like walking around sick, they got what they deserved. Okay, her suppressive letter. Some really good information here. The next thing she knew, she was locked, literally in a security room with a guard outside the door or nearby 24/7. No compassion. To her horror, she was isolated from the other girls and instructed to sit down and write down all her overts and withholds. Indiscretions committed openly and those that had been kept hidden. She explained, the theory is that if something bad happened to you, it's because you have done something bad in the past and you're pulling this in. I guess the guys doing the R-ing are pulling it in too, huh? So when they get R'd in prison, they pulled it in, didn't they? After about 2 weeks, she was allowed to see her mother. She said, we sat on the stoop where she lived and we had this conversation about what happened. I just remember my mother being so stone cold. Yeah, she's like, she might not even be a narcissist. She might be like one of those sociopath types. There was just no human reaction to it. Over the next few days, Katrina was subjected to a series of security checks, interrogations on the e-meter. She said it was done by a male. They were all males. They told me they didn't believe me. They always do the same thing. Is it any wonder how many assaults are going on in there? Names. We need fucking names at this point. They told me I was making it up just so I could leave the Sea Org. They asked me the same account over and over, focusing on all the details. Today, Katrina believes it was a blessing of sorts that she could not remember what happened to her and so didn't have to relive the trauma under questioning. The question focused in relentlessly on sex. Katrina recalled he was asking me, have you ever had heavy petting or gone too far with a boyfriend? Like they're getting off on it. Sick. The next question was, have you ever been physically or sexually assaulted in the past? And I have. Wow. My stepfather physically and mentally and sexually assaulted me. So that happened to her as a child. Katrina told her interrogator about a time when her stepfather had told her to strip naked and beaten her so badly with his belt that he left welts on her skin. She was 8 years old. Sick. Okay, and then Scientology. Okay, I'm not going to read this, but Scientology gives, this big bullshit statement. She said, so I'm going through this with this man, and the next question that came out of his mouth was, did you enjoy it? Did you misbehave on purpose so he wouldn't hit you this way? And I just lost it. I said, F you, I'm done. I'm not going to answer any more questions because this is actual torture right now. I really wish we had the names of these sons of bitches. By then, Katrina had a green card, but she was still so browbeaten by Scientology she didn't think to fight it as she was taken to the airport and watched as she got on the plane. A security guard accompanied her as well as her mother. whom she had asked for to make sure Katrina got on the plane, and she believes her mother didn't. She said, "I was really mad at my mother then. Once again, you're abandoning me." With no experience of life outside the Sea Org, few resources, and little education, Katrina scratched by over the next couple of years, working where she could until she had saved enough to return to America. Wow. Well, also, too, they were, I mean, like, I don't think Scientology would have been held accountable for the crimes. I mean, except the stepfather, I don't think that was, maybe it was related to Scientology, I'm not sure. But by sending her to Russia, then they can kind of clean themselves of it, too. Russia, after all, was a foreign country to her. In 2008, she came back. She was still a Scientologist and not in good standings due to her departure from the Sea Org. As hard as it is to understand, she wanted to regain her place in the church because it was all that she knew and it was her link to her mother. Like her mom doesn't even care about her. But just a couple of days after her return to Clearwater, Florida, 2 Sea Org members bumped into her in a bank. So they were probably following her. The next thing she knew, a church security guard angrily approached her and said, "You interbulated," a Scientology term meaning to bring up bad feelings. "Those Sea Org members, get the F out of Clearwater, or I'm going to declare your, you know what." Wow. So they're like, that was a local Clearwater bank, and they're doing that kind of crap. And none of the cops have any idea what's going on, do they? They have no fucking ideas. To be declared a suppressive person was the thing Katrina feared most because it meant disconnecting from her mother and grandmother. Hold on. Scientologists are not allowed to communicate with suppressive people, and though the church denies the policy of disconnecting exists, Katrina's own experience says otherwise. Katrina headed to Orlando, where she worked, and she began dating the man who would become her husband. She stayed in touch with her mother long enough for the older woman to come to her wedding in 2013, but the relationship was strained almost to breaking point even then. She claims the church harassed and called her constantly, trying to get her to sign up for services to get her back in good standings. But distance and her husband's influence started to loosen the ties that once bound her. You see how that is? They throw her away, and then they want to make her apologize and beg to come back. That's related to narcissism too. I can't think of the name though, but they make you feel really, really bad, and then you've got to beg, to come back. She said, "Not even my husband has the right to tell me who I can and can't be friends with. I live in the United States. I live in a free country. Well, we could pretend it is. Nobody's going to control me. I'm done having this conversation." Katrina hasn't spoken to her mother since November 2014. Good. In 2016, when she was 5 months pregnant with her son, she went to Clearwater to try to see her. She said she was crossing the street and I called out her name. Then I called out, "Mom." She turned and looked at me. She definitely spotted I was pregnant. She saw me, and then she turned around and ran away. Like I said, you guys, some of these people are going to get what they deserve. Yet even after everything that has happened to Katrina, she has remarkable compassion for her mother. She believes that she is trapped in a mental prison. Well, and should she ever break free, Katrina will be there to start the relationship afresh. She said, "One of the last conversations I had with her, I told her I would never change my number, and even 10, 20, or 30 years down the road, you can knock on my door at 3 o'clock in the morning and I will open it to you." That's kind of sad. But at least she got out. At least she got out. But I mean, they wanted to know, the male security guards or whomever they were, wanted to know every detail of her drugging and R-ing. And did she like it? Did she enjoy it? Okay, guys, I'll leave the link in the description box. If you choose to like the video, that would be awesome. If you want to subscribe, it's up to you. Share the video if you feel like it. Have a good day or a good night wherever you are. Peace.